You think you got all these nice things to say about me, but then when it's time to trust me with the truth,
Mm.
you cower. And I said,
Ah.
you're, give me the opportunity to prove your own words about me all right. Otherwise,
Ah.
I'm just going to think you blowing smoke up my butt. You know what I'm saying?
Yo,
I
I
don't
love
need all
that.
the compliments. If you really feel that way about me, when we
Yep.
reach a rough moment or a rough patch, and I
Yep.
say to you, listen, friend, I need you to be honest with me about this.
I love
And you
that.
continue to lie or you continue to try to, evade the conversation. It's like, do you think I'm amazing or not? If you really think I'm that person, let me show you. Let me show you
Yeah.
that you are. Give me a chance to really, really earn that spot. Welcome back to Spiraling Up. This is part two of the topic of friendship that me and Miss Holly were discussing before. Holly, say hi to the folks.
Hello.
Welcome back. And we are excited to go a little bit deeper into this topic. And so, where we left off, we were talking about reciprocity between friends. We should assume, especially as adults, who have friends, that even though someone may bring a different amount of something to the friendship, be it support, company, at times if finances are needed, as some sort of assistance or help or whatever, encouragement, and all those things that come together to make a friendship real, I would say, as long as those things are intact, the scale is always balanced. There's always 100%, right? But now, when does the scale tip? Meaning somebody is not carrying their weight in the friendship and it is causing the other person to have to carry more of the load. It puts a strain on the friendship. And now we're starting to have some problems. So, on the topic of the scale tipping and being out of balance, there's a few bullet point things that I would like to discuss. All right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
First one is how do you distinguish between a friend and a predator?
Ooh, I guess for me, the difference between maybe a friend and someone predatory isn't always obvious at first, especially when the spirit of discernment isn't, you know, but it's really because for me, my experience, predators don't come in as aggressive. They come more curious, they come charming, they come needing. Um, but a friend cares about mutual well-being. Um, I feel like a predator is focused on access to your
Mm,
time, your energy, your resources, even your emotional labor. I've had friends who they were just emotional vampires and they tried to act like a friend, but they were really like just emotionally draining me with their need of time, of my time, not even financial. But friends, they want you strong. But I think predators, for me, the distinguishing feature between a friend and a predator is that predators are most comfortable when you're overgiving. Predators don't really have boundaries. But then also, I think for me, it's about looking and distinguishing from a perspective of when I am not able to give, is this person still a friend?
mm,
Predators only take, they prey. And that's how I can distinguish between a friend and a predator. So when I stop overgiving is when I can start delineate between, okay, is this person only in my energy or near me or wanting to be a part of my life when I'm giving? And when I pull back, do they show up? Do they check on me? Do they care about my well-being when I am not overgiving? That's the distinguishing feature for me. Hmm.
yeah, and I have unfortunately a lot of experience with that. Um, you know, I know some people aren't necessarily into like zodiac signs and things like that, but it's interesting to see how me as a Cancer, I have a history of being generous and of giving and things like that. And I happen to meet a lot of people that I didn't know it for years. It took me a long time to see it, but
Hmm.
I tend to attract people that notice my generosity, almost
Yep.
like I got something on my forehead that says she's the one to plug into for what you need, and usually it has something to do with money. So yeah, I've
Hmm.
had those experiences, and where first it would start out as, uh-oh, I'm in trouble, can I borrow this? And then sometimes, to be honest, there would not even initially be an ask. It would be the just sharing their problem,
Yep.
that they've got
Yep.
some sort of financial problem. And I used to have this
I already
kind of
know.
hero syndrome. I
Yeah,
used
it's
to have
just,
the hero syndrome, and I'm saying used to because Lord knows I have wised up since then. But I really did used to have this hero syndrome where I just felt like, if I have the solution to your problem, how could I, as someone who is caring,
hmm.
see that I have that and not offer it to you and bring the peace back to your life. I think I was definitely very naive.
Well,
Um,
can I
mhm.
add to that for a
Sure,
second and just kind of
absolutely.
instead of you holding the torch of naivete, I'd like to
Hmm.
say that as I do continue to do work in my field, I've started to learn several therapists. I think Gabor Mate and a few other doctors that I could reference, that I would like to reference offhand, but I can't remember. But they've said that a lot of the times, these relationships, whether they're friendships or love, romantic relationships, a lot of the times we're replaying the roles that we played in our family. And if you think about back in childhood, your role, right? It's
Hmm.
usually a survival trait, which is why you did what you did in friendships, is because as a child, being the middle, because I know you, right? Being the middle, being
Somewhere in the middle, right?
somewhere in the
Yeah.
middle, right? Um, you probably, what you did was probably assess situations quickly and saw how you can make them better by doing such and what and not. So it's almost as if when we're for me especially, I was the hero child because I was the oldest. So a lot of that savior complex comes from a survival mechanism as a child. And so it's not you being naive. It's actually, and I say that because I used to talk in that way a lot where,
Hmm.
I'd be like, oh, it's because I'm a pushover.
Mm.
I would self-blame. Whereas
Mm.
as I begin to learn and through therapy, I understand that these were survival techniques that we had to use to show up, um, for ourselves as children. And it's not taking away, we're not going into the whole family thing, but I think that we show up. My understanding is that we show up in relationships and friendships. We almost sort of repeat those behaviors. And it's almost like, I don't want to say it's an addiction, but we almost have this inability to not try to save people.
Mm.
Somebody could talk about having a problem, and I know for myself, and I think you're the same, before they even finish, we're almost in our mind figured out how we're going to help them financially.
Right. Right.
And that was me,
We just go to
100%.
work. We go to work in our
Yes.
mind,
Yes.
and I want to add to your point that sometimes I believe it also probably came from what I observed
Yes.
in the different relationships within the family. Like if,
Yes.
for instance, there was, someone not being treated nicely by a
Yep.
spouse or whoever. Um, I have been told that as a child, that I would observe those situations. Like I would be locked in, looking at the situation happen in front of me,
Yep.
and not only want to, my heart would go out to the person that was being hurt, but
Yep.
also at the same time, I'm wanting to come after who's hurting
Yes.
you. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It didn't matter that to me, it didn't matter that I was a child and they were an adult. Like I just got this thing where it's like this is not going to keep happening, so
Yes.
so yes, it extended into my adult life, and so I appreciate you pointing that much out. And yes, maybe I won't use the term naive anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
yeah,
we're gonna speak love. And once you start digging in, you'll start realizing that these were survival mechanisms and it's what kept you safe. It's what kept us safe. I think the difference between a friend and a predator for me is mutual care versus
mhm,
access, right? Mutual
right.
care. It's that reciprocity. Um, and I always notice how predators kind of show up subtly, right? That need starts to trickle into the conversation and that charm is in there like, oh, but and then the crisis. That's usually like the pattern. The need gets thrown in a little something, something, then the charm
Yeah.
is in there. They show up for
Oh,
you in
yeah.
a small subtle way. And then the crisis hits. And then
Mm,
you become the go-to. And it feels
mm.
good at first for people like us. Because we like to be stewards of resources, of time, of emotional energy and money. It made us feel good. I know we're similar in that way. And then for me, I realized that not everyone who needs us or needs me deserves unlimited access to me. That's
Yeah. Now, a little transparency here and honesty.
yeah.
Looking back over my situations, I can see where many times I, I was looking for something in return without really meaning to, because
Okay.
just, I think that no one would label me a person that only gives to receive. That's not true. However, I'm thinking of specific situations where
Hmm.
even if it was something as small as acceptance or
Okay.
um, just talking to me nice, and that came on the heels of a lot of pain that I had just come out of. And so in my most vulnerable times, when I become the giver or the hero in a situation, it doesn't take much for me to lose sight of the reasonableness that should come with that,
Hmm.
and the discernment, to recognize, okay, somebody's using me, whatever. Um, because what I was getting was, it was kind of, it was soothing my pain, and so it could have just been kind words. It could have been the way someone was smiling at me. They could get anything from me at that point, because I felt loved
Hmm.
again. I felt accepted. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So in a way,
Hmm.
some of that giving was motivated by that return that I was getting, even though it wasn't monetary. And
Okay.
so that's where I have to take some responsibility for, allowing that kind of behavior to continue. And unfortunately, many times I wouldn't realize it until after I had given away so much. And I don't like to live in regret, because, I believe that these things taught me some valuable lessons. But the point here that we're trying to make is know a predator when
Yeah.
you see one. And this is how you begin to distinguish between a friend and someone who is there to just take whatever it is that you're
Absolutely.
willing to give. Okay.
Hmm.
So moving along,
Hmm.
you know, growing up, my mom would always throw random scriptures out to us, to try to help us navigate life. And one of those scriptures was, don't let the right hand know what the left hand is doing. Um, and I always knew, just based on the context of her saying that and what we were dealing with
Hmm.
at that moment, I knew what it meant. But in real time, when you're dealing with something, when you're needing to apply that lesson in life, sometimes it's hard to catch that moment. It's hard to recognize that this is the moment where you apply this. But I think this is one of those moments. Sometimes what has gotten me, and I'm sure other people, into trouble is talking too much about the things that you accomplished in life. Meaning, for instance, if I just came into a lot of money for some reason, or if I just bought a house, or if I just bought something expensive, you don't realize it, but the people listening, whether they're your friends or not, they are adding that up in their minds. Like you're letting them know without trying to that
Hmm.
you got money, you know? And
Mm.
what begins to happen is they'll start to spend your money before you do. And it's so funny that you mentioned the word crisis earlier, because I've also noticed that whenever I start to celebrate some sort of accomplishment in my life that involves leveling up financially, suddenly there just always seemed to be with somebody in my life, somebody close, who knew about this good moment. Um, Suddenly there's an emergency where they need some money, and
Mm.
I didn't put it together quickly at all. But when you start to see a pattern, it's like, hmm, maybe I need to keep my mouth shut, because then what happens is if you have to say, listen, I can't do it, in their minds, they could very well be like, well, you just did this, you just bought that. And so what do you mean you can't? You know what I mean? So it's almost like they take it like you're lying to them, and they take it really personal. And now your friendship is questioned, and you're looked at like you're some sort of um stingy, selfish individual who won't help a friend. And that's in their mind, that's when the scale tips for them. So, do you have any experiences like that, or what can you say about that sort of thing?
In my experience, when I do, from what I see sometimes, it's how are they showing up for me when I do talk about, I got some bread. Like with my girlfriends who are true core friends, um, they're excited for me. They're not asking me and inquiring about like I can kind of gauge when it's someone who's listening, secretly with an intention. I'm not saying in relationships or friendships you have to move in secrecy, like everyone's out to get you, but I learned that everyone doesn't deserve that full transparency, especially
Mm,
when you're growing. And I've had experiences where I've shared something good, a new opportunity, a blessing, or something I was proud of, but I could almost feel, and these are the signs for me. They don't celebrate you fully. They get weirdly sometimes competitive,
mm,
or they minimize it, or even they ask questions that feel more like surveillance than support.
mm,
And then the friends that only show up when things are falling apart, but not when you're rising. For me, my experience has been to be a little private in those moments until everything begins to unfold. And I've learned that I don't have to announce everything that I'm building. I kind of let the fruit show up when it's ready, not while
mm,
it's in getting ripe. I wait until
mm,
the fruit is ready. So, uh, so I've learned to be not, I don't want to use the word paranoid, but with maturity, I've realized um, kind of who I can do that with. But it took me some time. That's a really interesting thing that you say, right? About not letting the left hand. I would hate to feel that my friends are my right, like my left hand, and they're the other side that I shouldn't be sharing with. If you feel that in your gut, which is called neuroception and
mm,
interoception. There's a part of
mm,
we have more than five senses. We have eight actually. And the
mm,
one that's in the gut is the one that is that connection to our brain, to our gut that says, and it's called either interoception or neuroception. There's eight total. And an
mm-hmm,
interoception and neuroception are two of them. And I've learned that people will spend your money and your time and your emotional bandwidth before you even realized you offered it. And it's crazy. But I think the spirit of discernment is important here. Um, yeah, I've been through that early on
yeah,
because I feel like I'm just sharing, but sometimes oversharing.
yeah,
Um, I've had to learn how to create boundaries. And with maturity, I realized, and it took, some beating up. I got beat up a little bit out there.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And Lord knows I had to mature in that area as well, because yes, I experienced the beat ups, the beat downs,
yeah.
especially at the points where I had to pull back. Now I'm looked at like, it's like it's a drastic change where I was fully accepted. Now the door is shut in my face and I'm like this horrible person, or just not horrible person, but just this nobody now, because all of a sudden I had to change the relationship a little bit and pull back on my monetary giving because nothing else changed. But that alone was enough to totally redefine the friendship. Now, your
Well,
point, go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I don't want you to lose
I
your
know you
point.
talked about how you didn't want to look at your friends as being the left hand or the right hand, but
Right.
because I understand why you say that, but think of it this way. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
got two hands on the same body, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
it's all part of the body and all of it is useful. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like, there's a need to assign that concept to someone who's not a friend,
Mm-hmm.
it could be a
Okay.
friend, but these are very much still people. And depending on what their situations are, because everybody comes into relationships dragging behind them, their traumas, their experiences, their fears,
Mm-hmm.
their
Mm-hmm.
worries, and their, whatever troubles they may presently be in. And even though they may not think that they're, that maybe they need to focus on how to solve some of their problems, when they think I believe that when they see you as a way to improve their life, suddenly they see the opportunity to get something, to start to
Mm-hmm.
address some of the things that they wanted that maybe they put off before. Like, you are the shortcut to some of the things that they want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
instead of doing the work and maybe running the marathon instead of the sprint, you become the sprint for them. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is all I'm saying. And I'm gonna say I don't think people always mean to be that,
Yeah.
but it happens nonetheless. And so I just feel like that's why sometimes saying less it serves everybody. I've heard this as well. A wise man once said, "Shut up." And I only remember that because this is what I do. I be talking too much. I talk too much. Good. I see you.
Oh no, I agree. I think we come with this open and loving heart, right? And
Yeah.
sharing. And a lot
Yeah.
of times when I'm in even in therapy, I will start saying, "Oh my God, maybe on my next session I could bring in my sister and we can work on this." And she's like,
Mm,
"This is for you."
mm.
Right now. This is for you. I know that, but I know where that comes from. That goes back to childhood, right? We
Back
want to
to childhood.
overshare because we want that validation. We want that acceptance. We want that love from that person. And I think I've had to start moving with discernment. It's not secrecy. It's a boundary. And boundaries aren't punishment. They're information for us because when you mention that friend or those people that all of a sudden close the door, shut it because you've changed, you set a boundary for what you no longer want to receive anymore or to experience. And I feel that pullback moment that you do, um, and this resentment building from the others,
Mm,
that resentment is a signal. It's not a
mm,
flaw on you. It's a signal that maybe, you know what, when if I don't cultivate the relationship, if I don't feed into it, if I don't pour into it, if I don't show up for this person in this monetary or emotional vampire way, they shut down on me. They don't want
mm,
the relationship anymore. Or if I don't, when I notice that if I don't pour into someone and show up for them and the relationship has changed, that means that if I calculate the data, it's been one-sided. I've been the
yeah.
one growing this relationship because if I don't do what I've been doing and all they've been getting is receiving, that's discernment. But collecting that data is setting the boundaries, and boundaries will let you see. Boundaries will show you who
So
people.
it's less than about the scale, like there being this point where the scale actually tips, and more about that moment that you realize it was out of balance anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
Makes sense to me. Okay. All right. So the next question that I
Hmm.
have is, okay, so now we're noticing that all right, I have to kind of reassign
Hmm.
or adjust the placement of this person in my life. When do you burn the bridge? Like, well, better yet, how do you do it? Is it something you confront them about? And then now, everybody's clear that, our relationship is no longer considered something that is like true friend, or do you just gradually fade out? And there may be different ways, but what's your MO for that?
Oh man, I think over the years, right, my 20s, my 30s, and my 40s, there's three different versions of me. And
Mm,
so I would say that historically, um, I did it differently. And I did it differently with different people, right? Because
hmm.
sometimes a friend is a family member.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's a best friend that was your friend since I was 11 years old. I have a friend like
Yeah.
that. And you know, there's either a pullback because maybe just, and I think I said before in our first session, sometimes we have friends, especially early in childhood or even in our careers, we're friends because of proximity. We're at
Right.
work together every day, we're at school together, we're on a team. So sometimes
Hmm.
proximity makes the friendship a little bit deeper. I've had friendships where, I'll be honest, I haven't intentionally cut off friends really, and say, hey, this relationship has run its course. In my 20s, I would have to say friendships have dissolved based on either I moved and we kind of lost touch, or I've had a couple of friendships that someone said to me, hey, I'm ending this friendship. They said that I
Hmm.
wasn't, a great friend, and they realized I was, and they said that the cattiness that women can have and things like that. I was talking, I'm not a big gossiper, but I was told that I was gossiping. Hey, in my drinking days, maybe,
Hmm.
maybe I was, and
Hmm.
I'll always have to, hold that accountability on my part that I really don't know. And so,
Hmm.
but if you're asking me, I don't like to burn bridges. Sometimes I keep
Hmm.
friendships too long, longer than they need to be. Sometimes I've had friendships where even though I know it's dissolving, the only way that it's expired is through a blow up because I didn't
Hmm.
have the ability to, because I avoid conflict. So
Hmm.
only way out was a big blow up. And then it was like, okay, well, the blow up happened, right? So
You know what that reminds
I
me of?
what?
Because that is so your personality. Do you remember when we were kids sitting at the dinner table at my mom's house, and it
And you
was
would
me
abuse
and this,
me and then I would blow up?
huh?
You would abuse me and I would blow up,
Yeah, I would be, just
testing
maybe
me.
pinching your arm, getting a little harder, a little hard, and you're not even looking at me, you're not even paying attention. But
Yeah.
I would just be, poking, 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 and then suddenly you just
Yes. I would explode. And that, what's so funny, Joe? That's exactly how I've replicated my friendships and the ending. It's always
wow.
been, and I'm not an arguer like that,
Hmm.
so it would be they would be upset or, and it would end. That would be it,
Hmm.
or if I would blow up. Yeah. So most of the time, I don't believe really in dramatic exits at this age now because
Right.
it's just not necessary.
Right.
But I think the most mature thing that I've done is to quietly stop supplying what's overused. So if I feel like I'm constantly pouring in, I pull back and then I
Mm.
assess.
See
Um,
how they see how they react to that, or if
yeah,
maybe it changes.
distance doesn't have to be loud to be effective.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
I feel
Yes.
like for
Yeah.
me,
And
because
I'm
sometimes I need people as sounding boards to make sure I'm not tripping. And that's where I
correct.
think friends can misconstrue when you have a group of friends and you talk to
Hmm.
another friend about another situation with a friend, it can come off as gossiping, but really
Yes.
you're saying, hey, I think I have a problem with this one, but is it me or do you think? And you're trying to get, and then that other
Yeah.
person goes back, oh, Holly was talking, and I'm like, oh man, it wasn't
Yeah.
like that. And that happens in families, that happen in pillow
Hmm.
talking, and it's
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Pillow talk for
so
sure. But
to answer your
yeah.
question, it really depends on the dynamic, depends on
Hmm.
who, depends on if distance is effective, just by proximity, we just fall off. I don't think every friendship needs to have that time for us to have a conversation. I think it's over. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you this.
Hmm.
I have those conversations,
That's,
but
hey,
not to say that I'm ending it. What I'm doing is giving you an opportunity to adjust the behavior.
oh,
And
okay.
maybe give me an opportunity as I hear feedback from you, give
Uh-huh.
me an opportunity to um, correct my thinking because maybe I'm
Okay.
thinking of it the wrong way.
Gotcha.
Conversation to me should always be the opportunity to converse about something should always be given,
Okay.
because there's too many times where there was a simple misunderstanding where you could have just completely avoided all of this and ultimately losing a friend, so talk. This is part of the reason why I like to talk things out, and I don't care how long it takes. Let's talk it out. And I know sometimes when someone has done the other wrong, it's hard to face that, you know because it's hard for me to say, hey, you did me wrong, this felt uncomfortable. So I know for the person that did the wrong or committed the offense, I know it's hard for them to first admit it and then, maybe offer an explanation or maybe just
Hmm.
apologize and, whatever.
Right.
So I know it's difficult, but as you mentioned, at this age, I really feel like that pain or that discomfort only lasts a short while,
Agree.
because
Hmm.
once we've done it, it's one of those things that I feel like pushes us through a glass ceiling. We have now,
Hmm.
reached another milestone in our friendship where
Yeah.
we are now just that much more solid. But the problem
Okay.
is people cower. They do
Hmm.
not want to have those rough conversations
Yeah.
where, and I said to a friend of mine one time, listen, if you often say how amazing you think you got all these nice things to say about me, but then when it's time to trust me with the truth,
Mm.
you cower. And I said,
Ah.
you're give me the opportunity to prove your own words about me all right. Otherwise, I'm
Ah.
just going to think you're blowing smoke up my butt. You know what I'm saying?
Yo,
I
I
don't
love
need all the
that.
compliments. If you really feel that way about me, when we
Yep.
reach a rough moment or a rough patch, and I
Yep.
say to you, listen, friend, I need you to be honest with me about this.
I love
And you
that.
continue to lie or you continue to try to, evade the
Mhm.
conversation. It's like, do you think I'm amazing or not? If you really think I'm that person, let me show you. Let me show you
Yeah.
that you are correct. Give me a chance to really, really earn that spot. And that's just
Yo.
how I feel about it. Because otherwise I just feel like, yeah, you don't truly think I am amazing. That's just something you like to say for whatever
Hmm.
reason. I don't know if it's because you're also kind and you just like to say nice things but without taking anything away from me, I know who I am. I mean, I am a pretty decent person. You understand?
Hmm.
I ain't out here knocking folks over and giving nobody no reason to really speak ill of me. Not that I'm perfect at all, but I try to be really careful how I treat people. So humbly, it wasn't surprising to hear how she feels about me. But then
Hmm.
I'm gonna pull your card on that.
Right.
When we're in a rough situation, now let me show you. Let me show you that I actually am this person.
I
But
love
anyway,
that.
yeah.
No, I
So,
love that and appreciate that
mhm,
perspective for real, because a lot of us, we don't like uncomfortable conversations. And I think Mel Robbins said it in her book, Let Them, that 98% of adults our emotional maturity is like children
mm,
because we're not taught those conflict resolutions through,
yeah,
uncomfortable conversation, that level of dialogue. So a lot of times it's and especially now with the block and the block culture and all that, like boom, you do one little thing and it's like block, you're done. I'm not talking to you no more. Like people have the capacity to block people without even like a warning. It's just,
Yeah,
this era of, electronics now. You can literally be close friends with somebody and they block you the next day and you're like, wait, what?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, uncomfortable. We're moving more and more towards less, uncomfortable conversations. So big up to you for having those tough conversations because that's a great point. If I am this great person, why not see how I handle conflict with you as a friend? And like you said I think in the first video, that takes acquaintances to friendship. That that
yes,
that brings that changes the dynamics and the level of closeness, for lack of a
yeah,
better phrase, that you have in
true
a
that.
friendship. So I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. I'm gonna take that as a ding. I'm taking that.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just doing the best we can to just keep peace. That's really, always my goal.
Yeah.
All right. And so moving along, we talked about how we may observe people after we decide to pull back a little bit because we're starting to see some, predatory behavior, whatever, and we need to really just
Mhm.
know who we're dealing with. So I think we covered that now. So the final question, really, just to wrap up this whole friendship topic, um, it's actually just one main question and then maybe a couple sub questions, if you will. Ultimately, who is responsible for the pain that we experience? And I ask that because I'm going to get a little deep here and hopefully, the listeners don't drown. But sometimes we attract things to us. And
Mhm.
I kind of spoke about that before, about some of my behaviors that I believe attracted certain types of predators to my life. And I think this is where we're going into accountability, right? Because a lot of times we're not looking at the whole picture, right? Because I think most of the time people really just don't mean any harm, but I think that we do attract things to us sometimes
Mhm.
by the way that we vibrate as people. Because I study a lot of stuff, Eastern ancient philosophies and things like that. And so I've learned quite a bit and I've done a lot of meditating and you'd be surprised what gets downloaded when you go inside yourself and you get quiet and you spend time like that. But so basically what I'm trying to say is because I'm not trying to blame the
Mhm.
victim, right? I'm not trying to blame the victim, but at the same time, I want us at this channel is called spiraling up. People
Right.
have a lot of downward spirals, and we've heard enough of it. People's traumatic stories and tragedies and things like that. I'm in a place in my life where I'm through with giving energy to my bad experiences, and now it's time to spiral upward.
Mhm.
And I would like to reach a level that, at least go as high as I can while I'm on this side of life, so that the person that I present to the world is just good people, good energy. And I want to encourage through my behaviors and my energies, the same thing, good behavior, good energy. I want, one of my favorite poems is that poem about, what's your deepest fear? If you've seen the movie Coach Carter, with Samuel Jackson. It's a basketball movie. He keeps asking this kid, "What is your deepest fear?" And if you don't know the movie, if you don't know the reference, then you can do a quick Google on "What's Your Deepest Fear" poem. That is my favorite poem.
Yeah.
And so I try not to dim my light. Instead, what I try to do is be a certain way. I want to be what I want to see the world be. You know what I'm saying? So, and
Mhm.
I think that in that way, I do my job with attracting the right kinds of things to my life. So, but on the flip side, looking behind me and the things that I've gone through, I can see where a different mindset that I had attracted the wrong kind. I'm not gonna say wrong. I don't like to deal with right and wrong, but a different kind of energy to my life,
Mhm.
which was manifested through people that I began to have experiences with. So that said, do we unknowingly invite hurt into our lives And how did we attract those people? What are some things that we do to attract that hurt? Give me your perspective.
Hmm. Well, I think that two things can be true at one
Hmm.
time. This is a hard one because someone can hurt me and I could still examine how long I've stayed, what I ignored, or what
Yeah.
felt familiar. So it's not self-blame, I think it's more self-awareness.
Hmm.
I think that, hmm, when I think about, you know, just what that kind of what that looks like, I do believe that we attract individuals until the lesson is learned. I think the universe continues to
Mm.
put those people in front of us until I think there's a saying, the as soon as the student is ready to learn, the teacher
The
will.
master will appear. I
Yeah.
love that one.
Yeah, and I think
Master or
that
teacher. Yeah.
master or teacher, yeah, and I think that um I think every painful friendship or any friendship that I had has taught me something. I've learned about boundaries. I've learned about attachment, discernment, self-worth. I think instead of me looking at it as bad karma or like, oh my God, I just keep, getting these people repeatedly,
Hmm.
um, I can start to look at it as an opportunity for growth. All relationships that I've had that have dissolved or have some conflict within them, I
Yeah.
try to see the opportunity for growth and for my part, right? Because I'm
Yes.
in recovery, I do practice spiritual principles. And within those principles, there's a moment. Step 10 is where every single day, you do an inventory of how you behave throughout that day.
Hmm.
And so it allows me to do a daily moral inventory of how I behaved, how I handled the conversation, if I may have, you know, um, perhaps, hurt someone's feelings unintentionally. And that through that daily inventory that I do before I go to bed, I start to assess and reflect on me,
Yeah.
opportunities for growth. I look at the in which I can clean up my part because
Yeah.
I can only change me. I can't change others. And so I don't want to look at it as victimhood. This is, oh, I keep attracting these people because more so empowerment, right? I want to be responsible for what I allow moving forward.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that's where the freedom lives for me, is
Yeah.
not in controlling others, but in choosing differently next time. Um, and choosing what in my part. When I look at the relationships that have dissolved or the friendships that have dissolved, there's always a part that I've played,
Yeah.
always. And I think having the emotional maturity, but also living a life of recovery, I look at my part daily. I do it daily. And then it says at the end of the day, after you do that daily inventory, you swiftly apologize. And that's
Mm.
what I do love about the program, is that the spiritual principles of that program has made me a better friend. It has
Yes.
made me a better family member. It made me, more honest about my part. And I try to live an honest life. And so I think instead of me looking at this as this repetitive cycle of getting users or emotional, vampires or financial vampires, I can start looking at Holly. How did this, how did this happen, right? And a lot of times I played a part like people pleasing by doing
Mm.
things and abandoning my own self by
Yeah.
pleasing the other person. And so how can I really be mad at them because I said yes when I really meant no, and now I'm resentful to them, but I'm really resentful to myself.
Right. Right.
And so I'm responsible for me and what I allow to be done to me. However, there are people who, like I know you mentioned it, you said, I don't think there are actually people out there who do intend harm. And that's the scary part. And I
That's
think
true.
you and
That's
I
true.
think I've lived in a la la land. Like, wait, people think like that? Like, we don't even think that way.
Yeah. Real talk. If I may, quick
Yeah.
story. And this scared the crap out of me. I want to say it really knocked some sense into me.
Hmm.
So I was pregnant with my son, and I had a really rough pregnancy. The first 3 months I was sick the entire time and sleeping, tired. I was so weak, right? And my current living situation just was not fitting for what I was dealing with. And so I had some who I thought was a friend invite me to come and stay in a spare bedroom at her place. And long story short, there was a lot that I went through in there because the place was nice, it was clean, it was neat. Um, at first, the energy felt good, and I was just so happy to be somewhere where I could rest, and really just get whatever it is I needed, so that I wasn't putting stress on my unborn child.
Right.
So, but what just to fast forward, because I'm going to give that whole story another time. But what ended up happening was the situation got really bad, and I had to actually remove myself from it. I had to remove myself from it because it was worse, much worse than what I was already dealing with. I was told that I cannot let anyone know that I'm staying with them. Basically, my presence there was a secret.
Oh,
For
wow.
whatever reason, they just didn't want anyone to know that. There could have
Mm-hmm.
been a number of reasons for that. I put it out of my mind. I was just so happy to just have a peaceful place to be. But what I found out later, once I left, was that there was some conversation between these two roommates that I had. Well, the people that I moved in with, that they had they were out telling people about some surrogate that they had living with them who was going to
Have their
have a
baby.
baby for them. And that, yeah, it was like some arrangement for them to have their own child.
Oh my God.
Yo, when I heard that,
I know you
when
ran.
I looked at all of the craziness I ended up going through in that house, I said, yo, did see some I'm just I don't even I'm speechless to this day
Oh my
because
goodness.
people people could have and they did. You would not think that
Right.
this was something that was going on, especially upon getting the invite to come and stay, because it was almost like, yes, we want to rescue you from this chaos over here and give you this
Wow.
peace over here. Meanwhile, there was this whole plan to, well, I mean, what was going to happen? What was I going to be poisoned? I really don't know.
And
I don't know
so,
what the plan was, but I know what they were saying it was not the plan. You understand?
wow. So,
So yeah,
mhm.
that
I have some questions. Did you feel anything when you assessed the situation after it's over? You got out, I presume. I mean, I assume obviously you got out, you're here, and Joshua's Josh, fine.
right.
You got out safely. So, did you have any, and this is the part where when I do my daily inventory, what's my part? Did you see any, were there any signs of anything that seemed odd to you?
Afterwards,
When you look back and reflect, yeah.
well, I'm saying everything was odd. Everything
Okay.
turned. It got to the point where when I walked in the house, I could automatically feel like this really dark energy, and it got to the point where I would just start making a beeline to my room and just close the door and just be there for the rest of the night. And then that was looked at like, you know, you are being standoffish or whatever. And I'm like, I'm not, I don't have, first of all, I'm pregnant, so I'm highly emotional.
Right.
I'm dealing with this. It's the only child I have. So the only time I was ever pregnant. And I'm trying to manage my own emotions and
Yeah.
deal with a very, very, very strange situation here. You
I
know,
think in that situation, you may have mistook relief for safety.
I did. I did.
Right?
That's
Because you were
exactly what it was.
tired, you were vulnerable, and you needed
Yeah.
peace. And so they saw that. So when you were desperate in such a tender season in your life, they you mistake relief for safety.
Yeah.
when I say about my part, I want to be careful because I don't mean that because my part, I'm not intentionally causing harm, and nor did you deserve any of that. I think maybe my part, if I was in that situation, I would say my part was that I may have ignored internal discomfort because I wanted things to work.
Well,
Or
that's the thing.
I gave people the benefit of the doubt longer than I
Yes,
gave myself permission to ask
I didn't do
questions.
enough. I didn't do any investigating, to be honest.
Right,
I didn't do any
right.
investigating. I took things at face value, and there
Yeah.
again was the smile, the sweet talk, the seeming to really care about my situation. You know what it is, though. I have had to learn the hard way that people can do that. They can really present themselves as, like Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf dressed up like grandma, and being sweet and nice. And then you get close enough and they will come after your head, you know. So it's the whole reeling in process that I had to take a lot of years and reflection to learn to recognize, in real time,
Hmm.
because that's something that I just did not notice. And it's probably, I know it's because I just can't conceive of such a thing. I could never be that, well, let me give
Right,
let me not say that. I'm going to change it because I can be the same thing, right? We make choices, but I would never choose to be that way. You
right.
understand? So I
Hmm.
don't understand how or why it is people choose to be, so just, I mean, everything from,
Intentionally wrong.
yeah, yeah, it was intended. Like there was a whole plan that I just had, for my life and for my child, that I had no idea about.
That
It's
is
the
so
scariest,
scary.
it is the scariest thing that I, have ever heard, so, but I know how I felt. I know how when things began to feel dark and weird, and up until the point where I finally said I gotta go. I really felt like I was escaping something.
You were. Don't
Yeah,
feel,
and
you
and it
were
wasn't until later
escaping.
that I realized what was really what kind of conversations were being had.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so let's get off that. But I just wanted want
But I know my question is when you give that story, which is doesn't even sound real, right?
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
It's movie worthy.
real
Um,
talk.
actually. Um, you know, you brought that up because the original question was around, you know, getting these situations. Does it feel like, these situations that we're confronted with where is it, almost our fault that we keep getting, um, presented with these types of friendships or situations? That was your original question, right?
Yeah, and so I'll take the word fault out of it and
Okay,
say
yep.
more of,
Hmm.
there's something you got to learn here. You got to learn this, because the
Yes,
reality of the world out there, if you don't get it, then you're going to experience a lot worse hurt than this. And
yes.
so it was something that I needed to learn, and yeah, so because of who I am, and it's not just about balancing friendships, but of course balancing yourself, finding the balance, within yourself. Okay, there's give, and then there's don't give, right? I'm trying to be in the middle somewhere. And what that has to do with is, who it is, the circumstance, and everything else that, so it's
Yep.
not always a clear cut answer, but you really have to find the balance. And so I wouldn't say it's my fault.
Yeah.
I do take accountability for not really investigating the situation the way I should have. To be honest, I really didn't know much about these people at all, except that they were very popular in the community that I was in. And
Mhm.
so, um, and uh, one of the individuals, the one who actually invited me to come and stay, was one of the people that I used to rescue financially.
Mm.
So in my
Mhm.
mind, I thought that she was doing me a solid because of the way I looked out for her. You understand?
Yeah, you're
So that's
expecting
why that's
you
kind
in
of why it was a
her.
little bit easy to accept. Hmm?
You were expecting you in
Yeah,
her.
right, that part. And but I
My,
was still paying rent. I wasn't living there for free. As a matter of fact, I was paying over half the rent, and there were three adults living there. So I was more than paying my part. So I wasn't living there for free, but I still accepted it because again, I just felt like, wow, okay, this makes sense. I've looked out for her many, 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 many times, in big ways. And so maybe this is just, her, kind of showing me a little reciprocity. But no, didn't turn out that way.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, all right. That's gonna just about wrap it up unless you have a final thought or something you want to say.
No, I was going to say, with regards to that last scenario, I think
Mhm.
your act of self-love, where you got out, I think we can always question, why did they do this? And why is this person like this? Or why did this happen to me? But I think the bigger question is, why did I stay? And for you,
Mm,
you took it as a moment to excuse me, let me get out of here. But in some people, in some instances, because there's peace, or sometimes the benefit outweighs the risk in some people's minds,
yeah.
that they'll stay and ignored one of the biggest red flags and stayed because they had peace, or they had financial opportunity, or
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
the biggest, I think, factor in this is that you got the hint, you got the message,
Hmm.
and you roll
Yeah.
bounce.
Yeah. And
But
and let
I
me,
don't.
yeah, I do want to say, just to be fair, what I heard is hearsay. It was never
Right,
proven to me,
right,
but
right.
this
It
is
was
I
enough.
got it from a source that I deem reliable,
Right,
and
right.
that's where I'm gonna leave it.
Okay. No, thank you. That story. Thank you for sharing that for real. That,
Yeah. Um, no problem. And this is what it is. From time to time I will spill the beans about certain things that I've gone through in life because I know I'm not alone. Um, you know, uh
yeah. You ain't dropping no
man,
names, so it's all good.
and I will never drop names. I'll never
I
drop
know.
names. And so, but the hit dog will holler. So I will just say, don't expose yourself, because I am doing my part to protect, people from knowing who I'm talking about. So, if you're feeling away, hey, it's not me you gotta come and deal with. Maybe you should deal with yourself. You know what I'm saying? Or talk about me, do whatever you want, but don't bring it here, because I
Yeah,
ain't tell no
yeah.
lies and you know it. So, but I also am not saying any names. So yeah.
And
Um,
I think in that scenario too, now, and I appreciate like you sharing that, because as I resonate about it, right? I think about like, where, if I was in that scenario, where did I override my instincts, or where did
yeah,
I stay longer than I should have, or what
yeah,
part of me was looking for safety in the wrong place? And that's not blame, that's wisdom to start thinking about, you know, um, and becoming more honest with yourself. I feel like, thank God for that opportunity or that moment, because friendship should feel like community and love, and not confusion. And once you listen to yourself, and your gut, that's self-love. Self-trust is a form of self-love, and we don't have to keep learning the same lesson the hard way. And I think
right,
as we grow more self-aware, um, we begin to start having some better discernment. But I think also knowing who has access to our life, and have they earned that access.
right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just to wrap this up now,
Yep.
I had it, I kind of wrote these down as notes because I really just felt like I wanted to say this without having to try to memorize it. So as a last word, what I'll say is,
Mhm.
what I want everyone to ask themselves is, and we touched on it a little bit, but are you a victim of, or are you empowered by your struggles? That is up to you to decide. People are pawns, in my opinion. This is how I look at life. People are pawns on life's game of chess, right? This is one big game of chess. And whether they are for you or against you, they're there to help refine you in some way. And that's how we have to look at it. So don't take it personally, and learn how to employ critical thinking and rationality instead of emotion. Sometimes emotion will get you into trouble.
Yep.
Um, if you can't see the opportunity for the struggle, then you gotta kind of zoom out a little bit, you know. Sometimes all we see is the struggle, and it's hard to stop in real time and say, oh, there's an opportunity for growth here, you know. So I believe that if we master this, then we never have to have a falling out with people in our lives that we care about.
Yeah.
If because now it becomes about you recognizing that on the outside it may look like a bad situation, but in the grand scheme of things, it truly is an opportunity, another opportunity for you to spiral up. You know what I'm
Love it.
saying?
Yes, love it.
Thank you again, Holly. And to the audience, I want to give a special thank you to you for tuning in, for watching the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. We want to try and build this channel because I believe that as we move forward, and there will be, excuse me, different guests on the show sometimes. Holly, I'm sure, will be back, but there are some really saucy topics that are going to be discussed, and I don't want you to miss out. So stay tuned, help us build this channel. And as always, love and light, and stay at peace, and just be good. Just behave yourself. All right. We are too old to, continue with the unnecessary drama and conflict and things like that. There is a way to deal with things, people. And I think that sometimes we just need to pause and breathe and really just go inside ourselves sometimes, whether it's through prayer, meditation, however you do it. No fast reactions though, please. Let's just take a minute and think, because we do not want to burn unnecessary bridges, and we don't want to miss out on those opportunities to spiral up.